Yeah, I mean, it sounds insane. For repairing just a normal prop, 300,000. So it obviously has some special meaning. So that's why it showed in the movies, in many movies, such like Jack or Glass House with Lily Sobieski and so on. And of course, which is the thing I previously mentioned, the Judy Garland, right? The hat worn by Jack Rubenstein, which is Ruby Sleepers, Ruby, who killed Lee Harvey Oswald in the Texas police station. He was wearing the hat, which is a very famous producer of the hats, famous in Texas. It's called Resistol hat. And the Resistol hats are made in Garland, Texas. Would you believe it?
Yeah.
So even that, and in Kennedy, I believe on a 6th floor museum of the Texas Book Depository, from where the Oswald was supposedly shooting at Kennedy, there is the original Jack Ruby loafers worn by him when he shot Oswald, and this is also some kind of and a Resistol hat. So they display in the museum his shoes and Resistol hat. So basically, it's again a Ruby shoes and Resistol hat from Garland, Judy Garland from Wizard of Oz. And moreover, for example, like I pulled up 50 news article, at least 50 news article, which are comparing Donald Trump to Wizard of Oz. And the first, for example, you can look at the recent example. For example, on the Mika Brzezinski show. She's a daughter of late Zbigniew Brzezinski, one of the prime geopolitical strategist and former national security advisor in the Carter administration, protege of Kissinger and Rockefeller. She likened Donald Trump to Wizard of Oz and Emerald City. And then you can find, for example, the movie which is called Unauthorized, about the use of Donald Trump, which came out in 2005. And they show, for example, the older brother of Donald Trump, Fred Trump, flying the plane. The kid is flying the plane. The Fred Trump Sr., the father, talks on the phone to someone, and Donald Trump builds the Twin Towers on the near the window. And one of the letters is showing Q. So it shows the letters which are piling up into and combining into the name and surname Donald Trump, the Twin Towers, and the letter Q on the other side. So basically, the Q letter, you remember QAnon, this fictitious movement supporting Donald Trump actions during his first term, but it was shown as a Q on this toy set. Consisted out of the Twin Towers built by the kid, Donald Trump, in 2005 movie. And there, Donald Trump, when he's shown already grown up, maybe young man, 25, 27 years old, again, speaks about Emerald City and compares the Twin Towers and Lower Manhattan as the land of Oz, and talks to his father and compares the Lower Manhattan as the Emerald City. And then again, in the other movies, again appears the same comparison. And if you look at the movie we already discussed, it's not a movie; it's actually the musical, The Wiz, 1978, which came out with Diane Ross and Michael Jackson, right? It was filmed beneath the Twin Towers. Actually, the emerald-colored mountains, which are supposed to represent a land of Oz, they were placed physically beneath of the Twin Towers. And again, the yellow brick road in the musical leads into the Twin Towers, and the Wizard of Oz, lives in the Twin Towers. So physically, they show in the Twin Towers, except they make a fictitious bridge somewhere on the top of the towers, from where the speakers are placed, and the Wizard of Oz speaks to the public from above the towers. So basically, the yellow brick road leads to the Twin Towers. Also, Hillary Clinton compared, I believe during the 2016 campaign, Donald Trump to the Wizard of Oz. So somebody pulled the curtain, and he is a small guy, like Toto pulled the curtain, and bared the little small guy behind the curtain, which is a very famous expression. And then again, in this year, Kamala Harris again likened Donald Trump to the Wizard of Oz and compared him to the small dude behind the curtains. So all this comparison to the Wizard of Oz of Donald Trump are artificial, not organic, and scripted. It may not appear just a organic joke, even a bad joke. It will not appear this way. It looks like it was scripted. So plenty of politicians compare Donald Trump to the Wizard of Oz without any base. I mean, he didn't look like a Wizard of Oz from an original movie. He is a tall guy, not a small dude, bald guy, which was pulling the levers behind the curtain. So I find it intentional, artificial, not organic, 100%. And why? I think we still need to find out. It's intention to liken Donald Trump to the Wizard of Oz is 100% intentional. I don't know if Donald Trump himself publicly admitted or somehow compared himself to the Wizard of Oz. I still cannot find any original footage or any recording of speech where he actually compared himself to the Wizard of Oz personally, not in the movies. But there's an intentional comparison. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, it is strange to say the least. There is other, things like predictors with Trump in film that predict his presidency. One is, there's two really that come to mind, and that is, and this goes back to the 2016 election, is if you watch the movie Gremlins 2. Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a guy in that, played by John Glover, Daniel Clamp. Yeah, who's a Trump analog. And when they're interviewing him at the end, the two numbers on the microphone are 11 and 9 for November 9th.
Not only that,
which is 9/11 backwards.
You remember who was holding the mic?
It was I can't remember, but it wasn't like a real famous news reporter.
It was a real famous anchor, Eric Shaw, which was reporting during the 9/11 how the towers are crumbling. So there was the same guy in the movie several years before.
I remember that. And then they did a thing. This was about around 2011, 2010. Trump did a Serta mattress commercial.
Oh, yeah, Serta.
Yeah, and this was where he's counting sheep, and the sheep are basically, he's putting them out of business because the mattresses in the hotel room will be comfortable. So he's got them guarding door rooms. And the two rooms they're guarding are number 11 and number 9. That's pretty interesting also. And again, November 9th was when Trump won the presidency the first time around back in 16. So
and the elections, of course, were on November 8th, which is 88. 8 times 11.
Yeah. It's curious to say the least. And the other thing that was kind of interesting with, and again, this ties into 77 also, was if you watch the third movie of Back to the Future, Doc Brown's date of death is actually September 7th. Which again is 77.
Right.
That I thought was very interesting. But no, there's definitely some sort of something going on with those films that just can't be reconciled. I'm still working it out. I'm still trying to figure out what it is. But there's clearly a nexus with the Back to the Future. These numbers that keep popping up. The Wizard of Oz, of course, and again with the first Back to the Future movie, I mean, you can really see a lot of parallels with the Wizard of Oz. I'm finding that more often than not. One of the things I'm doing now when I watch a movie is I kind of analyze it, and this is in the new book. Is when I used to do it, I would always just put it through an esoteric or occult lens or numerology or gematria or Gnosticism or Kabbalah or Freemasonry or something like that. But now I almost look through the movies then I put on like a separate lens or watch it through a different lens, and that's through The Wizard of Oz. And you can see a lot of parallels going on with that in a lot of movies. I mean, and it kind of ties into Crowley's gematria. I mean, you see that turning up all the time. One of them was the movie Suspiria. This was the one that came out, I believe,
Jennifer Connelly by Dario Argento.
Yeah, the Dario Argento movie. Hang on one second. I just want to make sure I got the date right on this.
I think 1979 or 78, something like that.
77, of course.
77. All right.
And then one of the things that that was interesting with that was, I mean, again, if you look at Suspiria, you'll kind of see that it's almost like, again, this Wizard of Oz type remake where you have the young woman going to the strange land, interacts with the eccentric strangers, and then ultimately defeats the Wicked Witch of the West, which is, of course, the witch there in the dance academy. I can't remember the witch's name off the top of my head, but it will come to me. One of the things that I thought was interesting in that movie was it was Helena Marcos was the witch. She's the one who was defeated at the end. One of the things I thought was very interesting with this, and this almost kind of ties into Kubrick, and I think almost Kubrick must have picked up on this from The Shining, was when Susie arrives from New York to Germany, she's on flight 237, and of course that harkens to the room 237 in The Shining. And I think Kubrick must have picked up on that. And of course, what's interesting with that is when The Wizard of Oz was released in 1939, it was released on August 25th. And of course, August 25th is the 237th day of the year. Very interesting.
Which is also the distance to the moon, 237,000 miles, which is official distance to the moon, from Earth to the moon.
Very, very, very strange. And then the other movie that was that sort of kind of reminded me of that was the one that came out a few years later was Cruella with Emma Stone. And again, if you watch it through the Wizard of Oz lens, I mean, you'll see the same parallels where you have this young woman going to this strange land, which is London, where she meets the three characters who help her defeat the Wicked Witch, which is the Emma Thompson character. One of the things that was unique in that was when I can't remember what the actual license plate was, but when you apply, it had numbers and letters, and when you did it through gematria, the car that drove her to London had a value of 666, which of course is Aleister Crowley. And then they steal the birthday cake for her, and it was to Judy was the birthday cake, and that's of course to Judy Garland. So again, we see these Wizard of Oz parallels popping up in a lot of movies that at first kind of it's harder to see, but like I said, now I'm watching these films through these Wizard of Oz lenses where I can definitely start seeing more allusions to the Wizard of Oz that appear on the surface. They're very well buried. They're very well concealed. And again, with Back to the Future, I mean, the first movie is very, very similar to The Wizard of Oz. You have the JFK allusions in it, the Donald Trump allusions. Again, the second movie, Back to the Future 2, was released on November 22nd, 1989. Very strange indeed. So again, this is all something I'm tackling and putting in my new books that I'm working on. But I remembered that there was a lot going. I hadn't talked about Back to the Future in quite some time. But again, seeing all these Wizard of Oz parallels, Donald Trump, very interesting. You can't help but believe that these movies, that this wasn't prophetic of some kind, and especially the whole thing with the Luxor Casino with Biff Tannen. Again, very, very interesting to say the least.
Yeah, not to forget that actually the gematria of the name Donald is 119, which is 911 backwards, right? And Trump is 88. So 911 and 88 are always going along because, for example, the light show, the tribute and light on the ground zero each year, they are represented by 88 lights, 44 lights. Representing each tower. So first it was, I think, when it was first introduced in 2002 in March, it was actually lit for 33 days. I believe now, since many years, they lighten it for less. I think for a week. But also, there are multiple references to 9/11 and Twin Towers in all the Back to the Future movies. There's also some kind of character probably representing Obama, which was a Goldie, what's his name?
Goldie Wilson.
Goldie Wilson, right. And Wilson, I believe, Wilson is the famous company which makes the balls for the volleyball and football and stuff like that. Remember in the Outcast with Tom Hanks, he was talking to a ball, Wilson, which is famous. I used to play volleyball, so I know this company. They also make bets for the tennis rackets and many other stuff. And Wilson is also 9/11, so it's not by accident there. And also, I believe Tom Hanks crashed in this movie on board of plane number 88. I believe that was the name of the flight or something like that. I don't remember for sure because it's from 1995. And remember that the dark side of the rainbow, also known as a dark side of Oz or the Wizard of Floyd, is the pairing of the 1973 Pink Floyd album, The Dark Side of the Moon, with original movie 1939. This produces numerous moments of apparent synchronicity where the film and the album appear to correspond. Members of the Pink Floyd and Dark Side of the Moon engineer Alan Parsons denied any intent to connect the album to the film. Anyway, many fans are connecting the movie to the album, and moreover, you see this 42 degrees rainbow on the cover of the Dark Side of the Moon, which is a prism, and they also feature in the solar eclipse inside one of the clips. So this connection is really uncanny. They put it over everywhere. And also, it harkens to the Kubrick, the Odyssey 2001, because Dr. Floyd presides over the panel, and he's like on the top of the pyramid. If you look from a perspective, look at the because Kubrick doesn't leave any chance to any scene. That's why he took many doubles of many shots of the same scene. Sometimes he drove crazy all the actors because they have to reshoot a couple of hundred times one single scene. So in one of the scene, Dr. Floyd presides over the panel, and he's like on the top of the pyramid. So Pink Floyd features the pyramid on the Dark Side of the Moon album, and Dr. Floyd in the 1969 movie, which is based on a scenario by Arthur C. Clarke and Kubrick himself. Dr. Floyd is at the top of the pyramid, and then we have another 2001 Odyssey, which happened in 2020 during the famous events, which we cannot name here because it's censored, which also synchronized to the solar eclipse, and we have the death of Mr. George Floyd in the Twin Cities, Minnesota and St. Paul, which has also been featured on the picture in front of the Corona beer advertising. So all this ties up together, and it's not just a simple, curious factoids piled up haphazardly, and we're trying to to stitch it together. It's obviously intentional. It just requires a very lengthy explanation, which we are not at liberty to do in one show, but I believe we will probably touch it in the next show. And like lastly, you postulate in your books cinema symbolism that there is the method of the occult casting, where the certain actors with a certain gematria or astrological sign of their birth are cast on the special movies intentionally to magnify the effect. It's either the commercial effect or some kind of esoterical fulfillment which producer and the director tries to reach. So you mentioned Suspiria with Jennifer Connelly, and if you remember, Jennifer Connelly also played in the Dark Water movie, which is a remake of the I believe the similarly sounding title made in Japan, I think 10 years previously, where she also discovers the body in the tank of the top of the apartment. It was some kind of girl who drowned years before, and there's some kind of confusion ensues. So there she actually behaves like a Dorothy in the discovering the truth in Wizard of Oz. And also the real story, Dario Argento's daughter, Asia Argento, was involved somehow in the death of Anthony Bourdain, the famous cook. She was his girlfriend, and she's a kind of very dark character, like the characters which were presented in the numerous horror movies by her father. And she was somehow tied up to the death of Anthony Bourdain, which is a separate story, but it's all ties together. And by the way, the Dark Water movie with Jennifer Connelly, it was played out in 2012 in reality when the inhabitants of the Cecil Hotel in downtown LA, they found the body of the Chinese lady from Vancouver who supposedly drowned there by accident. Imagine the huge water tank on the top of the hotel, the huge hotel, in which many horrible things happened in the previous 60 years, which is also linked to the Aleister Crowley, because he lived in the Cecil Hotel in London, and this Cecil Hotel hosted even the famous serial killer Jack Unterweger and Richard Ramirez, also the other serial killer, and also Black Dahlia. She died in front of this hotel. So in 2012, they found in the body, like in the movie with Jennifer Connelly, which is a remake of the Japanese movie with the same name. So it all comes from the fiction to real life, somehow, somewhen, maybe later in times, but it's somehow manifesting, or they playing it out, rehearsing it in a real life. And so the art imitates life, the life imitates art.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely some strange things going on, to say the least. And like I said, it's it's a lot of this is the subject matter of my new books that I'm working on, and hopefully I should have them out sooner, not later. So we can definitely come back on and discuss this again.
Sure. And not to mention about what we discussed in one of the previous episodes, the show which was called the Route 66, featured actually the killing of the king, the fictitious land which actually looked like the killing of the President Kennedy, which was supposed to be aired on the 22nd of November 1963, which of course the producers deny, but it was announced. I saw the original announcement. It was like that, and we discovered in many episodes references to 9/11 and Kennedy assassination, and not to mention the Kennedy also linked to the 77, which was his number of his limousine, where he died, actually, the Lincoln, and 77 invitation cards which he sent out to his inauguration banquet, which we also discussed in one of the previous movie, and which is also gematria for Oz. And of course, Lee Harvey Oswald, which is one of the Germanic roots of this surname, means like a ruler, the Oswald, Oz, like a ruler, but it also ties up to the goat of Aleister Crowley. His daughter was actually pictured on one of the pictures with a silhouette of the goat head. I think the picture is from 1912 or 1911. And as and Oz, as in Hebrew is the goat. So it all ties up together phonetically or by numbers, and it also looks very intentional. Of course, it requires very good lengthy explanation, which we cannot do within one show. But somebody who wants to find out more, please read the books of Robert and check out our previous episodes, and it's all more or less detailedly explained.
Absolutely.
So we'll definitely come back to this because it's a really huge body of evidence, so to speak. And I think we will see much more comparison of Trump to Wizard of Oz, and we yet to find out what it does mean. So it is there. We just don't know why.
Well, yeah. We'll see what happens. But like I said, this is the subject of my new books, and we'll see what we can figure out.
Sure. So, Robert, thank you very much for your time today. It was very enlightening, and looking forward to your coming out of a new book and a revised edition of the first one.
Absolutely. And like I said, when the book comes back, when it comes out, we'll definitely do this all over again. And even before then, anytime I discover something new or you discover something new, let me know and we'll do a show.
Yeah, shoot me the link.